Have you ever heard a speaker, a leader, or a CEO say something so deep, so profound, so mind-blowing? But once you've read enough books, you start to realize that what was deep was actually chapter 2 from this book, or a portion of chapter 7 from this book. It isn't to take anything away from the person, but what you realize is most of these great people speak from not just the sum of all their lived experiences, but rather that plus a little bit from each book they've read. There's a very popular quote that says, "Not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers." And there's a reason for that. And in this episode, I'm going to go over the top 5 books that I would recommend to anybody that's getting into entrepreneurship that's going to help them build, focus, and take them to the next level. I'm not going to be mentioning mainstream books that you might assume are on this list. And this isn't just my favorite. These are what I put together as what I believe are essential reading for any person that's serious about entrepreneurship. So with that being said, welcome to episode 20 of Everything Entrepreneurship, the podcast with Kyle Jerome Carter, the place for ambitious employees, skilled professionals, those climbing up the corporate ladder, and working entrepreneurs as well. This topic was actually a pivot that I decided to make on Thursday rather than what I've been putting together for the whole week. The topic that I was going to cover today, I want to just do a bit more research to make sure that any information that I give in next week's episode is not just solid, but I'm looking at it from a different perspective. I don't want to be biased in this. That being said, it is a huge episode. I plan on tackling a very big topic in next week's episode, and I want to make sure that I do a very, very, very thorough review of everything before I bring it to you. And before we go into it, I can't go any further without giving another sincere thank you to everybody that subscribed to the channel. Not just your views, but your interactions, your comments, those that went to my Instagram and reached out to me. I appreciate it all. And I say it, but it's so true. It's not about me. It's about you and the information that I can give to you so that you can be actionable about this, follow through, and create that second or third form of income that you need. Last week, I had an amazing masterclass, link down below, Employee to Entrepreneur Masterclass. And when I say I'm getting better at these each and every time, I truly need to make the definitive transition, the most transparent, the most action forward. This is exactly what you need to do and why. Transition from employee to entrepreneur. And I'm just going to keep on getting better. So if you're looking forward to that, click the link down below. But without further ado, I'm going to get right into it. Now, I was going to make a top 10 list. To be honest, I was going to make a top 20 list because little known fact about KJC, I love reading, like I truly do. It might not be the most in the world, but it's more than the average. I've read well over 200 books, all the way through, not started, stopped. I'm talking just full-on books. The same way that I show different ways to leverage your 5 to 9, I lived that. I lived all of this stuff. For years, after work, I would go straight from work to Barnes & Noble's, and I'd lock in for at least 2 hours. After that, I'd hit the gym. And when it was Monday through Friday, I always had 3 days of work, 2 days of reading. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday were days specifically where I would take that 2 hours or more and just lock in and get work done for my business. But Tuesday and Thursday, I always reserved for just finding a book in the topic that I wanted to learn about. Most times it was about business or marketing, psychology, something like that. And I would basically just read for at least, sometimes not 2 hours, but at least an hour. I would do at least an hour. And the amount of books that I went through, the amount of information that I got, you start to realize, as they say, the more you start to know, you realize you don't know much at all. But I truly love reading. Now, I cannot and will not read like a fiction book or a story book. I will fall asleep. But when it comes to like these types of books, entrepreneurship, business, psychology, stuff that interests me, I can read all day. And I'm not just talking about Audible or like paperback books. So whereas I was going to make a top 10, top 20, top 50 list, I said for the podcast, I don't want it to be too drawn out. And technically, I was going to leave it at just 3. But I say, you know what? let me give you guys the top 5 books that are not just my favorite, though 2 of the books in here are in my favorite list. Let me give you what I believe are the top 5 books for anybody that's tackling the entrepreneurship journey. That's going to get them right, right? And you don't have to read these paperback. It can be paperback on like a Kindle or on like your phone or something like that. You can listen to it via Audible, whatever it might be. But these are, in my opinion, the ideal choices for anybody that's serious about entrepreneurship. So let's get into it. Let me come over here because I am going to have the books pop up over here, and I'll also have links down below. It's like Amazon or Barnes & Nobles, so you can also check these out. Now, I do have some honorable mentions. Honorable mentions that I do have are Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey, The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, and How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. All of these are pretty standard. If you are into reading or if you are into books, you've probably heard one of these. And these are really good books. I'm not saying do not read these. I'm saying these are honorable mentions, but don't necessarily make it into that top 5. And by no means, when I talk about the books that are in the top 5, am I saying that these should be representative of full book reviews. There are so many people, I don't do it justice. There's so many people online that probably do a better job of breaking down the book, what it's about, who it's for, all that stuff. In this podcast episode, I'm just gonna touch on each of them, tell them what stood out for me and how it can help you, right? And on a later date, the same way I do deep dive videos interchangeably with my podcast episodes, I think I might actually tackle like my top 10 or my top 20, maybe even my top 50 books of all time. But with that being said, we have number 5, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Boom, right? This book isn't necessarily like a budgeting book. It's more so how you think and perceive money. Using storytelling and behavioral science, he basically is able to explore why people make irrational financial decisions. And a lot of what's in here spoke to me because my time at the bank, about 4 years at the bank, when you're working at any financial institution or if you're around a lot of money, you have to understand, you just start to look at it as numbers. If you start just looking at everything, the vast amounts of money, as like, oh my goodness, what's this, what's that? It's going to mess you up. But I understood a lot of what's in this book then, but he put into a very digestible way. Not only that it's about strategy when it comes to money and finances, but it's about discipline. Like, it's so true. You can be a genius and be broke, and you can literally be simple-minded and be rich. It's all about how you think about money, using it as a tool, for lack of a better term. And I wasn't gonna add this on this list, but I think it would be, but it wouldn't have been as good as a list, a top 5, if I didn't include anything about finances and money. But regardless, this is definitely a good read. Like, if you ever grew up with financial anxiety or a scarcity mindset when it comes to money, this will definitely help you out. Number 4, we have Extreme Ownership by Jocko, Willink, and Leif Babin. On the surface level, most people think this is an amazing book for anybody that's a CEO, a business owner with a team or a full staff, because it boils down leadership into how you're responsible for everything. But I like to challenge that thinking, and I would say this is perfect for solopreneurs, people that are simply looking to move up in their actual career. Because when you sell a product or service, and I've touched on this before, you are responsible and have a level of obligation to follow through on that product or service. And there's no better lens to look at leadership than through this book. It's truly huge. This book is amazing for that reframe. It doesn't matter the circumstance. It doesn't matter if you couldn't control it. You still take extreme ownership for anything that has to do with you, your name, or what you touch. In this instance, your business. I love the way that they tell stories. I love the way that they bring it back to different corporate positions and how they're able to take those same things that they learned as Navy SEALs and are able to bring that into the workplace. Amazing read. Number 3 is The E-Myth by Michael E. Gerber. I've referenced this book as well, and I believe this is an amazing book for anybody that has had that feeling of like, I can do better. I'm at a job, I'm only getting paid this, but I can do more. This book is like a prerequisite before making any moves, because in his words, you've had that entrepreneurial seizure, but depending on how you are and depending on how you work, you could be working against yourself instead of for yourself and for your business. He goes in to say basically like most people aren't running businesses, they're running exhausted jobs that they created, like being self-employed and doing everything yourself. That's not why you started. Most times that's not why you started. Like you might be able to hustle your way into launching the business, but you can't hustle all day, every day and sustain it. He categorizes the 3 types of trains of thought that you have as you are an entrepreneur, and it's a really good read. I recommend it to not just anybody that has that drive inside of them, but anybody that's like, I just want to quit this job. You don't do a single move before you read this book. And then we have book number 2. Now, these 2 are in my top, I'd say they're in my top 5. Yeah, this one's not in 6. It's in my top 5. These 2 are in my top 5 favorite books of all time. Like I read these. First up, all of these 5 books I have read in the last 12 months. These 2 books I read at least once a year. Like I don't feel like I have to, or it's a drag. Like I want to keep myself sharp and to just remind myself and see what else, what deeper level I can go in, not into the book, but the material themselves. So number 2, I mentioned it just a couple weeks ago, but it's another, I would almost say mandatory read. Imagine reading this book by Kolenda. Oh my goodness. When I say the perfect mix of psychology and business with practical steps that you can take, he does it so well. It's like a psychological deep dive into how to influence your brain. This book basically teaches you how to manipulate the most powerful thing in your life, your mind. And the way that he does it is so efficient. Like he doesn't waste a single word, a single page, and you understand why it's happening. And you can, in most cases, apply all of these instantly and get feedback to say, wow, this really works. So anybody that's in entrepreneurship, technically anybody at all, should read this book. So it's number 2 for a reason. If you were to only read 2 books, it can be these 2, and you're going to have a solid understanding, not just of what or who you are, but what you have to do and why. And then number 1, we have, in my opinion, the number 1 entrepreneur book. People that work with me one-on-one, deeper than just a consultation, this isn't recommended reading. This is required reading. The number 1 book on this list, the number 1 book I recommend for any and all entrepreneurs is Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. This is a timeless book, and all the information still hits home every single time. The crazy thing about this, when I was putting together this list, Kolenda and Imagine Reading this book makes it very clear that on a subconscious level, you don't do anything without a mental image first. If I'm going to grab this pen, or if I'm going to grab my coffee, like consciously or subconsciously, regardless, one of the 2, there was a mental image of me doing it first. Any and all action has a mental image. Maxwell Maltz, in this book, if you understand that's how powerful a mental image is and how it's pivotal to every single action, he breaks down and deconstructs and advises how you can really harness and tap into your self-image. Your self-image will dictate any and everything that you do, like who you truly are. And the way that he puts it is so amazing, even how he breaks down cybernetics in general. Though these are huge concepts, he's able to bring it home, make it digestible, and allow you to have different things that you can do to test these. Like the bottom line is, like, you'll never outperform your self-image. And this book teaches you how to rebuild it. There's many times where myself, if I see that I'm not doing certain things, if I'm not achieving certain goals, if I'm not going after certain things, I consciously say, oh, wow, my self-image is just warped. I have to relock in, refocus, and get to it. Sometimes if it's really bad, I'll just reread it to see not only everything that he said and laid out, but what new information I can get from it. From, at this point, my 6th or 7th or 8th read through. And again, these top 5 are like an amazing top 5. I would love to know in the comment section below, what are some of your favorite books of all time? You can ask any of my friends and family when they give me a book recommendation. So long as it's not a story or a fiction, I read it. A lot of time wasted because there's some books I'm like, okay. But at the end of the day, I do get something from it. And going back to the intro, you'll see that as you move through life, it's not just your lived experiences, but especially at a business level, you take from different aspects, or you take information from different chapters in different books, and you meld it into your own way of being. So when somebody says something so deep and so profound, after a while, once you've been in and around enough circles, in enough rooms, you start to realize, okay, they put their spin on what this person said in this book, or they're being a contrarian to a theory or principle raised in this book directly. And again, that doesn't discredit any single person at all, because the information is out there. Whereas we have information, or we have access to answers to questions online and the internet, especially with AI. Don't take for granted your ability to read a book, because the deep and profound things don't just come from the hard-hitting quote in these books. It comes from going through all the pages, like rereading the book, maybe not front to back, but reading a chapter a couple times. There's so much value in that repetition. It's crazy. So these are my top 5 books that I recommend for anybody going through that entrepreneurial journey. And I would be really excited to do a top 50, but to make it not a 2-hour video, because each one of those I'd actually do like an actual deep dive. I might do like a top 10 or something like that. So yeah, check them out. Like I said, I'm going to have the links for the books down below. And I am curious as to your book recommendations. When I say I love reading, I truly do. But let's transition into KJC and what I've been up to, how's business and stuff like that. Every single week, I swear, almost every single week I say, I'm going to take some more time and I'm just going to talk about me and what I've been up to. Like, I just be working. Like when I say you can ask anybody that knows me personally. It's not about things always going well, because things don't ever always go well. I'm always blessed that I have the opportunity to go after every single day. It's not about me thinking about people in other places of the world and how much better I have it, but rather I'm in the springtime of my youth, even though I'm not getting any younger by every day, and I'm going to go after it if I can. So I'm excited for all the projects I'm working on for the company. I'm excited on the personal side. Like I said, this content I have, I'm getting ready for the workshop later this month, as well as just perfecting the masterclass. I'm trying to live up to that term. Everybody has like a webinar or just throws on the title masterclass, but you're not giving master level information. There's certain things I'm working on to make sure that I better convey the information. But I take it all in stride, man. I'm so excited. And like I said, I didn't want to be trigger happy and just put out the topic that I'm doing this week, because I'd much rather have a little bit more information, do a little bit more research to make sure that I can give this the correct way. But it is going to be a huge episode. Probably one of my biggest episodes yet is going to be next week. Also, Q&As. Usually I do 3 Q&As. I think next week I might do like 5 Q&As. So go to my Instagram at kyle.jerome.carter and send me your question, and I will answer it here next week. Yeah, I'm not the motivational guy. I'm not going to just tell you, oh, just believe in yourself just to say it. And I say this with full conviction that you do got this, regardless of your situation, regardless of how things are going in life. Nobody's saying be happy. But what I am saying is move forward at least one step each day. If you fall off midway through the day is not over. You can still do one thing. It's not about being perfect. It's just about showing up each day the best you can. So with that being said, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, a great rest of the week. I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you.